If you're a chocoholic, you're going to love this episode of Martha Bakes. We have a chocolate baked Alaska. Doesn't look so chocolatey, but inside, chocolate ice cream, chocolate cake. And we have warm chocolate cakes. These melt in the center chocolate cakes that only take 7 minutes to bake. And the pièce de résistance, chocolate caramel cream pie. This is a to die for pie, just delightful. Today on Martha Bakes. Baked Alaska is essentially cake topped with ice cream and blanketed in meringue. These miniature versions take this iconic American dessert to new heights. 3 layers of rich chocolate cake, which is very easy to make, and chocolate ice cream. So for the cake part, we need 1 1/3 cups of all-purpose flour, 1 1/3 cups of granulated sugar. Put that right into, and 1 cup of Dutch processed cocoa. This is a very rich, unsweetened cocoa powder. 1 teaspoon of salt, 2 teaspoons of baking powder, and 2 teaspoons of baking soda. Now, sift all this together. I just want to show all of you why you sift. It does make little lumps, but those lumps are easily dispersed through the strainer. So here we have our dry ingredients. Now we have 6 egg yolks. We're going to beat those with 1 cup of safflower oil. Safflower is a tasteless, clear oil, vegetable oil, that works very, very well in cakes that call for oil. 2 teaspoons of vanilla, and 2/3 of a cup of warm water. An odd combination of ingredients for sheet cakes. And this will give very, very moist chocolate cake. So now just add your chocolatey ingredients, the dry ingredients. You can see how nice and shiny the batter is. And now it's time to beat the egg whites, which are folded into this chocolate. Using the same mixer, we have 6 egg whites, a wire whisk, and we're also going to add 2/3 of a cup of granulated sugar. I'm adding the sugar little by little into the egg whites to get them to soft peaks that are glossy and smooth. Our baking trays have been sprayed with a vegetable spray and lined with a sheet of parchment paper. Spray under the paper and on the paper. I think that's good. Yes, glossy peaks. Now these get folded right into the chocolate mixture. Lighten the chocolate a little bit if you can with a dollop of the egg whites. If you've been wondering about Baked Alaska and wondering how it got its name, it was made to commemorate the United States purchase of Alaska in 1867. So here we have beautiful chocolate cake mixture. Now we want half in this tray and half in the other tray. And spread it all out. This does rise, so you will have a thin sheet cake from which we will cut our discs that will be the basis for our baked Alaskas. Chocolatey chocolate baked Alaskas. Now spread this. I'm using a big offset spatula to level the batter in the pan. Now your oven should be preheated to 350 degrees. Bake the cakes 18 to 20 minutes. Not too long. After the cake is completely cooled, run a knife around the perimeter and try to lift up a piece of the parchment. It looks like it's going to release. And then just turn this over very quickly onto a piece of parchment paper. You have to be bold when you do things like this. And there, came out perfectly. Remove the parchment And now we're going to cut these into rounds. We are using a 2.5-inch round biscuit cutter, a 3.5-inch round, and a 4-inch round. We need 6 of each size for this particular dessert. So altogether, you could probably get, out of the 2 layers, 12 of these wonderful chocolate baked Alaskas. Now, spray a small glass bowl with vegetable spray and line with plastic wrap. And then spray the plastic wrap. And you start with the smallest rounds. These go in the bottom of the bowl. It doesn't matter which side is up or down because everything's going to be covered with meringue, the snow of Alaska. And now a scoop of ice cream on top of the small disc. So now the 3.5-inch squares. This dough is like a very moist, almost brownie dough. And now a big scoop of ice cream on top of this layer. Approximately 4 cups of ice cream for 6 of these baked Alaskas. And now the top layer. And just press down. Don't be afraid. And you see how nicely they fit into these bowls? Absolutely perfectly. And then cover with your plastic wrap so that the cakes are well sealed, and get this right back into the freezer until the cakes and the ice cream are rock hard. So now for the meringue. 12 egg whites, 3 cups of granulated sugar. Stir it in well. We're going to make a Swiss meringue, and I always add in my meringue a little cream of tartar. A pinch, sort of like that. That helps keep the meringues dry. And a pinch of salt I'm going to put into my meringues also. This is a Swiss meringue, which is egg whites and sugar, cream of tartar, heated over a bain-marie, and then whipped to a smooth, glossy, frothy texture. And just keep stirring until the egg whites are warm, almost too warm to stick your finger into. Put this right on our stand mixer. Turn this on high and beat until it's exactly the consistency you want for a piping over our beautiful chocolate Alaskas. So now the meringue is done. It took about 12 minutes. Here's our chocolate Alaskas. I can't wait to unwrap one for you. Gently release from the bowl. And here you have your little chocolate cake. Now you can just spoon and swoop. Now look at that. It is like snow. It's like Alaska snow. Then cover all the chocolate. Oh, so beautiful. And so easy. So just proceed and do all of them like this. And right before serving, take one of these little torches and brown the meringue. And that, my dear friends, is a baked Alaska. Really cute. Enjoy. Five ingredients are all it takes to make what might be the most luxurious of chocolate cakes. They're known for their rich, hot, runny fudge centers, and legend has it that these chocolate cakes were invented by a busy chef who mistakenly undercooked his recipe. First, chop up 4 ounces of semi-sweet chocolate. Get the pieces of chocolate as small as you can with the knife, because we're going to melt the chocolate with the butter. 4 ounces of semi-sweet chocolate melted with 1/2 cup, 1 stick of unsalted butter. And we're creating a double boiler effect here over simmering water with the chocolate and the butter. As the butter melts, the chocolate will also melt. And now the molds, these are 4-ounce size porcelain ramekins. The chocolate cakes really cook very well in these. Use room temperature softened butter and a brush to generously butter the ramekins. You can make larger cakes if you want. This recipe makes just 4, and you can double the recipe if you like, and then make it again if you're going to make more than 8. Okay, so take a teaspoon of flour and run it all the way around the ramekin, like that. I would dump that flour into the next ramekin. And you don't want any flour left in there, so really bang it out. And run this one around. Good to do it over a sink or over a tray. And then you can bang this one into the next. Makes a lot of noise, but nobody's listening. And I keep these on a baking sheet like this. It makes it easier to handle 4 molds at one time. There. Our molds are ready. And look, melting very nicely. Now, very few ingredients, as I said. So we need 2 eggs and 2 egg yolks in the bowl of our mixer. So here we have our eggs. Fit the wire whisk on your mixer. And beat the eggs and egg yolks with 1/4 cup of granulated sugar. And I said that these were molten chocolate cakes. Well, guess how much flour these cakes have in them? 2 teaspoons. All-purpose flour. That's it. So beat this until it is light and fluffy. So now pour your chocolate right into that mixture. I think I can take this off now. And so now, just pour even amounts into your ramekins. And what makes these a fantastic dessert for entertaining is that you can make them up to this point and just keep them in the refrigerator until you are ready to bake them. So if you have 20 people coming for dinner tonight, you can make these in the morning, stick them in the fridge, and then put them in the 450-degree oven right before you want to serve them. And if you've dribbled a little tiny bit, I suggest you wipe your dish, just because you want it to look real pretty when you take it out of the oven. Okay, so now we're going to cook these right now in a 450-degree preheated oven, 7 to 8 minutes. So while the cakes are in the oven, I thought I would show you one really pretty garnish idea. Instead of using a candied flour, why don't you sugar some fresh green mint leaves? It'll taste very good with the little chocolate cakes. So an egg white with a little tiny bit of water added, just to thin it out a little bit. There, that's good. And then hold your mint leaf and make sure that it's a pristine leaf. You can buy mint leaves all year round, and just brush with the egg white and water. And sprinkle both sides with a little bit of superfine sugar. And just put on a rack to dry. Very pretty. A simple way to garnish a pretty cake. You can do that with pansies, roses, rose petals, a variety of edible plants. Make sure the plants have never been sprayed. Okay, so now, 7.5 minutes. These should be perfectly molten. Look how cute they look, like little mini soufflés. We have our mint leaves. Now to lift these, they're very, very hot. We have tongs wrapped with wet paper towels held on with rubber bands. I find that these work very well as lifters, just like that. You want to invert these on a glass plate and just let them sit there for a minute or so. Same thing here. And now the cakes should slide out. Garnish with a little mint leaf or 2, so pretty, and a dollop of whipped cream on the side. And when you cut into your dessert, look what pours out. beautiful molten chocolate. Delectable, delicious, a mouth-wateringly simple dessert. Enjoy. You are going to have the best treat. This is a delicious recipe, and it is a chocolate caramel cream pie with a silken chocolate pudding filling and caramel whipped cream. It's a truly decadent dessert. You need a pâte brisée crust, and I'm just rolling out 1/2 of our perfect pie crust pâte brisée recipe. You can see all the bits of butter in here. It makes a very delicious, tender crust. Okay, so that looks good. So now to get this into the dish, if you're worried about it tearing or ripping, you could try to lift it up and flop it in, but this is a pretty easy way to lift up a big piece of pastry. Just roll it on your rolling pin like this and place your crust right over the dish. You need to tuck under the excess crust, completely covering the glass rim of the dish. There's not that much overhang, so I don't even have to trim on this crust. Just roll it under. And we're going to make an edge that we call bear's teeth. Make an even number of cuts, about 1/2 inch apart, all the way around the crust. Just like that. And then what you do is fold in one and leave one down. Fold in one and leave one down. That gives the most charming crust. Go all the way around. If it gets too soft, put it in the refrigerator to chill and continue. I have one that's already done, so I'll just put this into chill. So here's one that's already finished, all the way around, very neat looking, and docked with a fork. Docking prevents the bottom crust from bubbling up or erupting when it's baking. This keeps the crust nice and flat in the bottom of the dish. Now this has to be blind baked, which means baked before it is filled. And to blind bake, take a piece of parchment paper. It can be white like this or unbleached, and I just wrinkle this all up. Makes it easier to fill with the weights. It makes the paper less stiff. And now fit this into your crust and fill with pie weights. You can buy aluminum weights. You can use beans. You can use rice. I find these beans, which are probably 20 years old, very effective weights. Now put this right into a preheated 375-degree oven for about 20 minutes. Then remove the beans and bake until it's a nice light golden brown. So now we're going to show you how to make the filling for the chocolate caramel cream pie. And the chocolate custard that goes in the crust first is made out of 4 ounces of bittersweet chocolate, melted in 2.5 cups of whole milk. And let that melt over a low flame. You can whisk it. And the dry ingredients that thicken the custard, 1/4 cup of cornstarch, 3/4 of a teaspoon of salt, and 1/2 cup of granulated sugar. Whisk this all together. Now, this is a pudding. A pudding generally has a thickener in it, like cornstarch. And a custard is thickened with eggs. Good. We don't want any lumps. Now, this goes right into the milk and the chocolate. You just put the whole thing in. This will cook until it is nice and thick. We need 4 egg yolks. Now these are going to add more flavor and an additional thickness to our pudding. Now to temper, add a little bit of this very hot chocolate pudding into the egg yolks. You're bringing the temperature of the egg yolks up to the same temperature as the chocolate. And then you can put this back into the pot. And so now just add your egg yolk mixture to the chocolate. Stir this, cook for 1 to 2 minutes. Smells so good. It is a delicious chocolate pudding. And here is our bear's tooth edged pie crust. It is a beautiful color on the back as well as on the front. It's tender, but it still holds its shape if you lift it very delicately. Now pour your chocolate pudding right into the crust. This should fill the 9-inch crust exactly. And in order that a crust doesn't form on the pudding, just place plastic wrap right on the surface. Now this can be put into the refrigerator to chill. Now you can make the caramel for the whipped cream topping. 1/2 cup of sugar, 2 tablespoons of water. And I don't stir this, I just swirl. This is going to be the caramel. So turn this on a pretty high flame. I sometimes just cover it and let the steam rise up the sides of the pan onto the cover, and it drops back down, preventing any crystallization. Another way to stop the crystallization that might occur is to take a brush with water and just run it around the rim right above the sugar water. So now reduce the heat and add your cream. Keep cooking. If you just left it with no cream, it would turn into a hard crack candy. With the cream, it becomes like a sauce. So beautiful. So that's a nice color. And now because it's so liquidy, just immerse the whole bottom of the pot. Now listen to this. It makes a sizzling noise, and this will help thicken the caramel. So here is our caramel sauce. Very, very nice. Now with this, we are going to flavor whipped cream. The whipped cream is going to top the chocolate pudding. And it's 1.5 cups of heavy cream whipped to soft peaks. Make sure the caramel is cold before you do this. So delicious. And just whip this some more until it gets nice and thick. You could use an electric hand beater if you don't want to test your muscular strength with a whisk. But this is good exercise. So look, everyone, it does get nice and thick. So here's our pie shell. And now dollops of the caramel cream on top of the chocolate. We want this nice and high and beautifully sculpted to your taste. Now, to finish this off, we made the same amount of 1/2 cup of sugar with 2 tablespoons of water and poured the caramel on a non-stick pad. This makes a really pretty glassy-like caramel. And you can just break this up with a serrated knife into almost like broken stained glass. Very brittle. Break it into really kind of small pieces. Amber. So now sprinkle this amber all over the top. And this is certainly gilding the lily. And really pretty. Thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you next time on Martha Bakes. Warm 2 cups of milk and 1 cup of heavy cream over medium-low heat. Add 5 ounces of chopped bittersweet chocolate and whisk until melted. Add 2 tablespoons of light brown sugar and whisk until dissolved. Continue to warm until thick. Add freshly grated nutmeg if desired. Serve with a dollop of whipped cream.